bounty of money is flowing into the rainy day fund, doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be spent. There may be a period in the not too distant future where it will actually be raining. We may need that for another cause. Times are really good right now. And again, if you know an oil man or an oil woman or anyone in the mining business, give them a big hug, because they are driving our economy forward. It's not necessarily because we're being so sharp penciled with the state's budget. It's because we've created a regulatory environment that allows men and women to use their ingenuity and God's given resources to make us prosperous.
There was a statement made about the legislature passing a budget. There's a broad swath. People assume that if the legislature passed something, everybody voted for it. But I wanted to make clear that I didn't vote for the budget. And I take that, thank you. I take it very seriously when I have to vote yes or no on a budget. And it's difficult when you're voting against your own party. And I had to do that this time. And I took a lot of heat for that inside the Senate and inside my party. But there was a reason I voted no. And the reason I voted no is because I did not believe in my heart that this budget served your best interest, my family's best interest, my constituents' best interest. We spent too much money. We didn't cut taxes enough. The governor asked for more taxes. I wanted more, he asked for more tax cuts. He didn't get them all. I thought we even needed more tax cuts than he offered up. We didn't fund transportation out of the budget. We didn't fund water out of the budget. We didn't fund any of the core functions out of the budget that we needed to, at least the increases. And so when I looked at that budget, I could not justify a vote. And I sat back there with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and I sat back there with the Chairman of Senate Finance, and I said, I cannot, in good conscience, vote for this budget, whether I'm the only one who votes yes or no. If I'm the only one that votes no, I'm voting no. So I walked out of there, and we had 2 no votes initially on the budget, and ultimately 2 other members of the Senate decided to vote no. So out of 31 members of the Senate, 4 Republicans voted no for some of the very reasons that I'm talking about. Sometimes you have to have the courage to stand up against your own party and do the right thing.
Let me take this time, not necessarily to rebut, but let me give you two stories that may help you in figuring out who you want to support. First one involves a case called Wallace v. Jaffrey. This was a U.S. Supreme Court case in 1985. I was a young lawyer at the time and was very disappointed as a young lawyer that was concerned about federal overreach and activist jurists at the time that were taking away states' rights. And I noticed that they told the state of Alabama that you couldn't have silent prayer in the state of Alabama, and therefore the precedent of that was that you couldn't have it in any state. That disturbed me greatly. And ultimately, as a father of 5, when I was elected to the legislature in my first term in 2003, I went in, worked with my colleagues, and we put silent prayer back in the schools, along with the 2 pledges, back into the schools of Texas. And I worked with then a very smart young lawyer named Ted Cruz, who was the solicitor. And we protected that law in the district court, and then I worked with his solicitor, Jim Ho, who's endorsing me, to make sure we protected it at the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. So not only do you have the rhetoric of conservatism, but you have the ability to work smartly and efficiently and hard, get your hands dirty, and actually make something constitutional and change that for 5 million kids in the state. Second quick story. When I entered the legislature, you could pass a bill in this state without there being a record. So you can have basically a secret vote on a bill that would affect millions of people. And so in 2007, after pushing hard for accountability, which we've talked about here, I worked with my colleagues and got this bill passed, and along with the citizens of Texas, we changed the Constitution so that never again in this state can you pass a law affecting millions of people like you and me and not have there be a record. 2 examples of where I was not only conservative, but I got the job done.
have the 2-minute closing, and we're going to start with Senator Paxton.
It's been a real privilege to be here today. You know, I've had a real enjoyable experience being in the Senate this last session. We had the opportunity with 5 new conservatives coming in to be more conservative than any Senate's ever been. And we killed a lot of really bad House bills and a lot of bad Senate bills. The reason I'm running for Attorney General is because this country is at a crossroads. We've never been here before. If we don't have an Attorney General that's willing to stand up and fight the federal government at every step of the way, this state's in trouble, this country's in trouble. So how do you know who's going to do that? First, I think you have to listen to what we say, but you know what they say, talk is cheap. You need to look at our records. I've been one of the most conservative, if not the most conservative, member of the House and the Senate for the last 11 years. That's why numerous conservatives have stepped out to support me. Kathy Adams, Tim Lambert, Kelly Shackford, Ann Hettinger, the Concerned Women of America. The list goes on, Rick Santorum. And recently, this week, over 100 Tea Party leaders stepped out to endorse me because of the record. Texas Eagle Forum just gave me 100% this session. I'm the only senator that got 100%. Texas for Fiscal Responsibility just gave me 100%. I'm only the senator that got 100%. It's record, and third, it's courage. I've been willing to stand up for my own party at any level. I was willing to run for speaker when I thought we had the wrong speaker. It's record, it's courage. It's the only way you can know what you're going to get. Look at the past to see the future. Thank you.
Representative Branch.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you all for the kind attention and your patience and engagement on a Saturday afternoon. So the question is, who are you going to choose? I mean, obviously, it's a Republican primary. We're all Republicans. We're all conservatives. To me, the distinguishing feature perhaps should be who can actually deliver and really fight back against a federal government that is out of control. I agree that we're in unusual times. I think this is a time where, without overstating it, that this U.S. Attorney General is literally mangling parts of the Constitution. I mean, just recently, he didn't even wait for the ink to be dry from a U.S. Supreme Court decision that said there is no preclearance until the Congress redraws the statute. And immediately he files suit in Corpus in San Antonio to undo that. So we are in perilous times. And I don't think that can be overstated. So we better have someone that has a record of getting things done in a thoughtful, conservative, constitutional way. And that's been my history. So in my view is when you look at the candidates, you should say, well, do we have someone who's got a record of preserving limited government in Texas? And whether that's maintaining our light regulations and passing tort reform, or eliminating government, as I'm doing in a proposition just this time, or whether it's maintaining open government, which I've talked about, standing up to Republicans and Democrats, people in my own party, veterans who didn't want there to be a record vote, or pushing back against activist federal judges and making sure that we have the right to pray. I have a record of getting things done. Perhaps that's why the associates around Ted Cruz and the leadership around General Abbott have endorsed my candidate. Perhaps that's why the chairman of the Texas Tea Party caucus in the House has endorsed my candidate. So I would say I hope you would join them, and I ask for your vote, not only in the straw poll, but in this election. Thank you.
Joanne, Sharon, thank you all very much, and thank you for being here on a Saturday afternoon. You've heard a lot about votes and about fighting Obama, but the Attorney General's job is not a voting job. It's a policy implementing job. It is a job where you take the laws passed by the legislature and you defend them, and you fight the federal government's encroachment. You've heard a lot about fighting Obama. I'm the only one that's done it. I'm the only one that sued the EPA 7 times. PolitiFax asked the other day if that was true. After a week of investigation, they said, yeah, he has sued the EPA 7 times. And we're winning. We're tenacious, we're courageous, and we're bold. I come out of the Harris County District Attorney's Office. There's no better trial training ground in America than there. And I'll tell you, I've had some cases where I didn't think I would win them, but I prosecuted them anyway. I once had a lady who had been beat up repeatedly by her husband. We put her on the stand, and she said it didn't happen, in spite of what she had told the officers. But I got a conviction in that case. And afterwards, as she was walking out of the courtroom, she looked over at me and said, "Thank you. This job requires courage. It requires tenacity. It requires gumption. And it requires someone who doesn't need on-the-job training. And I'm the right candidate to be your next Attorney General. Please vote for me in March and vote for me in this straw poll." Thank you very much.
As Eleanor makes her way up, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you to those of you who are watching remotely. I want to tell you that this is an unusual opportunity for the voters of Texas. People who are constitutional conservatives need to understand this, that for the first time over a decade, we're going to elect someone completely new for governor, someone completely new possibly for lieutenant governor, someone new for attorney general, and someone new for comptroller. That is incredibly important for the direction of the state of Texas. The next forum that we will have here is on October the 12th, and it will be with the lieutenant governor's race. On October 3rd, I will be the debate master for the lieutenant governor's race debate that is in Houston, put on by the Clear Lake Tea Party, and they will have opportunities for you to access that as well from remote. So thank you so much, and Eleanor, would you please tell them about the rules?
Okay, time for the straw poll. The rules for voting will be the same rules as if you were voting in a general election. You have to be a legal resident of the state of Texas, and you have to be at least 18 years old. For those of you who are close to the minimum age, and you think that there may be a question as to your ability to vote, if you wouldn't mind giving us the courtesy of having your driver's license out so we can take a look at it. That would be very helpful. The ballots have been secure since they were printed, and they will be unlocked just prior to your getting them. For everyone who wishes to vote in this election, if you would line up single file on the east wall, right over there, and if it would be helpful if you could do it by rows, just to help facilitate the single file. We're going to be very careful about the one person, one vote rule. There are 3 tables back there, and as you come to the first table, you will receive a ballot, and then